here, and today we're taking a look at the Zuru Surprise Dino Strike Dino Hunters, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and Dilophosaurus. Now, these are the new series of figures from Zuru, which are like the same basic concept as the old Surprise Dino Strike figures, in that they are assemblable figures. You get them in little blind bags, you gotta open them, you're not gonna know which one you have until you open it. Except these guys have a couple of key differences. First off, they are much larger. They're a lot bigger than the old Surprise Dino Strike figures. For example, I have the little Stygimoloch here, and he is definitely a lot smaller than either of these two. So these guys actually kind of feel more like proper bigger figures, whereas the littler guys are kind of more akin, I guess, to the Jurassic World minis. These guys are more akin to like the actual, like the attack pack figures that Mattel has been doing. So it's nice that these guys are a bit bigger. Unfortunately, that really doesn't make them that good. I'm gonna take a look at the one that pissed me off more first of these two. Now, there's a checklist to these guys, but something else that's interesting is this line does not just include dinosaurs, it also includes vehicles. There is a T-Rex, a Stegosaurus, a Pterosaur of some kind, the Dilophosaurus, a Brontosaurus, and a Margosaurus, and then there are two vehicles, which are the helicopter and an attack jeep or something like that. There's also two rare figures, both of which are repaints. There's like a camouflage jeep, and then there's this guy. This is actually the rare T-Rex, which is just the T-Rex, except he's green instead of red. I think they kind of like reverse the colors. Like the original T-Rex figure is like red with green highlights. On this one, they kind of reverse it. So yeah, this guy was actually kind of exciting for me to get. And then I got to assembling him. I started to pull them together. When I'm trying to attach the head to the body, I hear something snap. And then I'm not going to be able to show it, but something in there, a little piece that's supposed to connect his head to his body, ended up snapping off. A little itty bitty, like almost, like not even this big piece of orange plastic ended up snapping off, and as a result, I couldn't get the head stuck to the body. So what I ended up doing was basically spending all day yesterday gluing this guy's head on. In fact, you can still see the residue from my attempts to glue this guy together. I may have used a bit too much glue, but I don't care, because that pissed me off, because the figure literally broke the second I got it out of the box. Now, he's supposed to have a gimmick where you're supposed to be able to, pull on his tail, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. You're supposed to be able to pull on his tail, and that's supposed to move his head, I think, or at the very least, open his jaw. But since I've glued the head on, it no longer works. You actually have to manually open the jaw up, and manually shut it. This figure's not very good. He's definitely, accuracy-wise, I'm not even gonna try, because it's clear they didn't do any research. They just took the Jurassic Park T-Rex and kind of copied it. And it looks okay in that regard. This gives me a very old Jurassic Park toys feel, or like in terms of what they were trying to go for. But in execution, this feels more like a Hasbro Jurassic World figure, which if you remember, the Jurassic World toy line from Hasbro was god-awful, and it was the reason why Mattel ended up with the license recently, which is a good thing, because Mattel has given us pretty excellent figures for the most part. With the little scarring, which doesn't really seem to have much of a purpose. There's some scars running down the sides of the leg, there's one on the tail, and there's an X-shaped mark there, kind of weird. The other thing that gives me a Jurassic Park Series 2 vibe is this little muzzle here, which you can, instead of armor, these guys have like muzzles, which you can then put onto his head. And it fits on okay. It's kind of like the armor of the original Dino Strike figures, in that it tends to slip off if you're not being careful. But on this guy, the armor is the muzzle fits on just fine. But I really don't like this figure very much. For a rare figure, this is pretty damn lazy, because it's literally just a repaint of one of the other figures in the line. It's not a new mold like the rare figure from the original Zuru Surprise Dino Strike, which was the gold Spinosaurus. That was at least interesting, because it felt more rewarding, because it was actually something new. Whereas this guy is just the T-Rex, but repainted in a color scheme that I actually think looks worse, because he kind of looks like I don't know what it is about this color scheme, but it kind of reminds me of like a really sour apple. like the color scheme. This really bright green just gives me a sour apple vibe. But yeah, I'm going to move this guy off to the side, and we'll take a look at the other one of the two, the Dilophosaurus. Of these two, this is the one I like a little bit more, even if he is arguably the more scientifically inaccurate, because it's clear they went for the Jurassic Park route and just copied Jurassic Park's Dilophosaurus and didn't even bother to do any research other than that. But this one's a little bit better for me, if only because he didn't break apart in the box while I was trying to take him apart, put him together. Though he was still a pain in the butt to put together, and I still think his arm is going to pop off at any minute. And these frills here, these pop off at the drop of a hat. These will pop off basically anytime you try to move him. Essentially, doing anything will cause these frills to pop off. And they're not easy to get in, so it's a little bit annoying when they do pop off. You know, this figure kind of reminds me again of another Jurassic Park figure, of the original Jurassic Park electronic Dilophosaurus, which had like removable frills, so you could technically make a more movie-accurate Dilophosaur, but if you didn't want to, you could take the frills off, and I am actually kind of tempted to take these off, except for the fact that I'm scared I'm going to lose them. You might also, now he also did come with a muzzle, but somehow on the car trip home, after I bought this guy, I somehow ended up losing it. I have no idea how I did, considering that it was right there when I opened the box. Either it's still in the car, or it's back at Target where I bought these guys, in which case it's gone forever. Now, his gimmick is pretty standard for the series. You just push down on the tail and his mouth will open. And sometimes it gets stuck open like that. But yeah, I'm really not a big fan of these two. These two figures are really not that good. They're pretty bad. Like, compared to the old Dino Strike figures, which weren't that great either, these guys are just embarrassing. Because they're bigger, don't get me wrong. But bigger isn't always better. Because they're just really boring. They don't even have the whole, like with these guys, they don't even have the whole, whoa, this is so awesome in a stupid way kind of thing that those guys had. These guys are just there and not very interesting. So if you want to track these guys down, they're not that expensive. These guys together were about $10, but still, if you're not willing to spend that much on these guys, then don't bother. Don't try to track these guys down. But if you're willing to go after them, which I may pick up some more, but I might not either, then go ahead and grab them.